The Discovery, Commander Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the UES Meridian, her coffee growing cold as she stared at the tactical display. 3 days had passed since Research Station Delta 7 had gone silent, and the rescue mission was taking longer than anyone had hoped. The Outer Rim was dangerous territory, filled with unstable wormholes and gravitational anomalies that could tear a ship apart without warning. "Commander, we're receiving a weak signal from the station," Lieutenant Rodriguez called out from the communications console. His voice carried a mix of relief and concern that made Elena's stomach tighten. "Put it through," she ordered, moving closer to the main screen. The transmission was garbled with static, but Dr. Sarah Mitchell's voice came through clearly enough. "This is Delta 7 to any Earth vessel. We've made contact with an unknown species. They're terrified of us. Repeat, the aliens are afraid of humans. Something about predators. We need immediate assistance." Elena felt her pulse quicken. First contact situations were always delicate, but this sounded particularly complex. "Rodriguez, get me a clear channel to Earth Command. We need to report this immediately." "Already on it, Commander." Dr. Marcus Chen, the ship's xenobiologist, stepped forward. He had been quiet since they received the distress call, but Elena could see the excitement building in his eyes. "Commander, this could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. If there's an established alien civilization out here, it changes everything we know about this sector." "Let's focus on getting our people back safely first," Elena replied, though she understood his enthusiasm. Humanity had been searching for intelligent alien life for over 2 centuries, and most encounters had been disappointing at best. The Meridian dropped out of hyperspace near the research station, 6 HFY. Hours later, Delta 7 appeared intact from the outside, its solar collectors still functioning and its communication arrays active. But something felt wrong. The usual hustle and bustle of a working research facility was absent, replaced by an eerie stillness that made the crew uneasy. "Life signs?" Elena asked. "All 37 members of the research team are aboard and alive," reported Ensign Park from the sensor station. "But there are also other readings. Unknown biosignatures, definitely not human." Elena nodded grimly. "Away team, prepare for immediate departure. Full diplomatic protocols, but stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into." The airlock of Delta 7 hissed open, revealing Dr. Mitchell waiting on the other side. Her usually neat appearance was disheveled, and her eyes held a mixture of wonder and fear that Elena had rarely seen in the veteran scientist. "Thank goodness you're here," Mitchell said, leading them through the station's corridors. "The Zephyrians arrived 2 days ago. They're incredibly advanced, but they're convinced we're some kind of legendary monster species." "Zephyrians?" Dr. Chen asked, his recorder already active. "That's what they call themselves. They're about our height, with crystalline skin that changes color based on their emotions. Beautiful beings, really, but they won't come within 50 meters of any human without their protective suits." They entered the station's main laboratory, where Elena got her first look at the aliens. 3 Zephyrians stood clustered together near the far wall, their skin shifting between deep purple and bright orange in what Elena assumed was a display of anxiety. Their forms were roughly humanoid but elongated, with 4 arms and faces that seemed to shimmer like living jewels. One of the Zephyrians stepped forward cautiously. When it spoke, its voice came through a translation device. That gave it an oddly musical quality. "I am Zeph Prime Corvani of the Stellar Collective. You are the ones called humans, yes? The children of the predator world." Elena stepped forward slowly, keeping her hands visible and her posture non-threatening. "I am Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earthship Meridian. We mean no harm to you or your people." Corvani's skin flashed bright red. "No harm? Your species carries the mark of the great devourers. The ancient records speak of beings like you, who consumed entire worlds and left nothing but emptiness behind." Dr. Chen moved to Elena's side, his excitement barely contained. "Commander, I think there's been a misunderstanding. They're confusing humans with something else entirely." "The records are clear," Another Zephyrian interjected, its skin cycling through rapid color changes. Bipedal predators with forward-facing eyes, aggressive tendencies, and the ability to consume both plant and animal matter. The descriptions match perfectly. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The description was accurate, but the conclusions drawn from it seemed wildly off base. Zeph Prime Corvani, I understand your concerns, but I assure you that humans are not the beings from your ancient records. We're explorers and researchers, not conquerors. Perhaps, Corvani replied, though its skin remained a cautious orange, but the collective has decided to evacuate this entire sector. We cannot risk the return of the Devourers. Dr. Mitchell stepped forward. Commander, they've been preparing to leave since they first saw us. Their ships are incredible, technology decades ahead of ours, but they're so afraid that they're willing to abandon colonies that have existed for centuries. The implications hit Elena like a physical blow. If an advanced alien civilization was preparing to flee human space based on ancient fears, it could set back human expansion and diplomatic efforts by decades or even centuries. But more importantly, if these Devourers were real, humanity might be walking into a trap it didn't even know existed. Zeph Prime Corvani, Elena said carefully. These Devourers you speak of, when did they last appear in this region of space? Corvani's skin shifted to a deep blue that Elena was beginning to associate with sadness or grief. The last recorded sighting was over 3,000 cycles ago. They swept through the Andorian sector, consuming 12 worlds before vanishing beyond the galactic rim. 3,000 years, Dr. Chen whispered. That's a long time for any species to remain dormant. The Devourers do not die. The third Zephyrian spoke for the first time. They sleep between feedings, growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to return. The appearance of humans in this sector can only mean one thing. Elena was about to respond when Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice crackled through her comm unit. Commander, you need to see this. We're picking up massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. Whatever's coming, it's big. The group rushed to the station's observation deck, where the main view screen showed the starfield beyond. At first, Elena saw nothing unusual, but then Dr. Chen pointed to a cluster of moving lights that were growing brighter by the minute. Ships, Elena breathed. Hundreds of them. Corvani's skin went completely white. Impossible. The Devourers should not return for another millennium at least. Unless, the young Zephyrian navigator named Jax said quietly, the presence of the new predator species has awakened them early. Elena felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. Whether humans were the legendary predators or not, it seemed their arrival had triggered something ancient and dangerous. The approaching fleet was still hours away, but Elena could already see that they were unlike anything in human or apparently Zephyrian records. Zeph Prime Corvani, she said, turning to face the alien leader. I propose a temporary alliance. If these Devourers are as dangerous as you believe, then both our species are in grave danger. Together, we might stand a chance. Corvani's skin cycled through several colors before settling on a cautious yellow. You would fight beside us, despite our fear and mistrust? That's exactly what humans do, Elena replied firmly. We face the unknown together, learn from it, and find a way to survive. It's what makes us who we are. Dr. Chen was already pulling up data on his tablet. Commander, I'm analyzing the energy signatures from those approaching ships. The pattern is unlike anything I've ever seen, but there are similarities to some theoretical models we've developed for self-replicating machinery. Self-replicating? Elena asked. Think of it as a mechanical plague, Chen explained. They consume raw materials to create more of themselves, exponentially expanding their numbers with each world they encounter. Jax, the young Zephyrian, stepped forward despite the obvious fear radiating from his crystalline skin. My grandfather fought in the last Devourer War. He always said the key to understanding them was recognizing that they were not truly alive, but not truly dead either. They exist only to consume and grow. Elena nodded grimly. Then we need to prepare for a fight unlike anything either of our species has faced before. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The Zephyrians reluctantly agreed to share tactical data about the Devourers, while Elena coordinated with Earth Command and the growing human fleet that was responding to their distress calls. What she learned from the alien records was both fascinating and terrifying. The Devourers were indeed a form of artificial intelligence, but one that had evolved far beyond its original programming. They existed as a collective consciousness, spread across millions of mechanical bodies, each one capable of independent thought, but linked to the greater whole. They had appeared in the galaxy over 10,000 years ago, and in that time, they had consumed hundreds of worlds before mysteriously vanishing. The pattern is always the same, Corvani explained, its skin now a steady professional blue. They arrive without warning, establish a beachhead on the least defended worlds, then spread outward in an exponential wave. Resistance is usually futile because they learn and adapt faster than organic beings can respond. Usually, Elena repeated, but not always? There are records of a few successful defenses, but they required massive sacrifices. Entire star systems were rendered uninhabitable to deny the Devourers the resources they needed to replicate. Dr. Chen looked up from his analysis. Commander, I think I understand why the Zephyrians mistook us for the Devourers. The behavioral patterns they described, the aggressive expansion, the adaptability, even the omnivorous diet, those are all traits that could describe either a successful biological species or a sophisticated AI. Elena felt pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place. You're saying we're not the Devourers, but we share certain characteristics with them? Exactly. But there's a crucial difference. The Devourers consume and replicate mindlessly. Humans consume and create purposefully. We build, explore, and preserve. We don't just survive, we thrive. As if summoned by their conversation, the first wave of Devourer scouts appeared on the long-range sensors. They were sleek, predatory shapes that moved through space with an efficiency that spoke of millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Elena watched them approach and felt something stir deep in her chest, something primal and fierce. "Zeph Prime Corvani," she said, her voice carrying a new note of authority. "I think it's time you learned what human predators are really capable of." The Alliance. The War Council convened aboard the Meridian 12 hours after the first Devourer scouts entered the system. Elena looked around the conference table at the assembled officers and aliens, feeling the weight of history pressing down on them all. To her left sat Zeph Prime Corvani, its crystalline skin cycling slowly between thoughtful blue and determined green. Across from the Zephyrian leader, Dr. Chen was surrounded by data pads and holographic displays showing everything they had learned about their enemy. "The situation is worse than we initially thought," Elena began, activating the main tactical display. "Long-range sensors show at least 3,000 Devourer vessels approaching our position. They're not just scouts anymore." Admiral Harrison's image flickered to life on the communications screen. The gruff veteran looked exhausted, but his voice remained steady. "Commander, Earth Command has authorized the deployment of the Fifth Fleet to your position, but they won't arrive for another 18 hours. You'll have to hold the line until then." Elena nodded grimly. The human forces in the system consisted of her own ship, 2 destroyers, and a handful of research vessels. Against 3,000 enemy ships, those odds were effectively impossible. "Perhaps," Corvani interjected, "it would be better to evacuate the system entirely. The collective has protocols for such situations." "Running away won't solve the problem," Elena replied firmly. "These Devourers won't stop with one system. If we don't make a stand here, where will we make it? How many worlds will we let them consume while we retreat?" Jax, the young Zephyrian navigator, had been quietly studying the human tactical displays. Now he looked up with an expression that Elena was learning to interpret as curiosity. "Commander Vasquez, your battle formations are unlike anything in our databases. Most species adopt defensive positions and attempt to outlast the enemy, but these patterns suggest offensive action. Dr. Chen smiled grimly. Humans learned long ago that the best defense is often a good offense. We don't wait for the enemy to come to us if we can help it. But that's exactly what makes you similar to the Devourers, another Zephyrian officer protested. Aggressive expansion, proactive tactics, willingness to take risks that other species would consider suicidal. Elena stood up, feeling something crystallize in her mind. You're absolutely right. We are like the Devourers in some ways, but there's one crucial difference that you're missing. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history of conflict and cooperation. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, but we've also been building civilizations. When we conquer, we don't consume and destroy. We adapt, integrate, and improve. We turn enemies into allies and wastelands into gardens. Corvani's skin shifted to a surprised yellow. You're saying that being predatory is not inherently destructive. I'm saying that predation in nature serves a purpose, Dr. Chen added, pulling up biological data. Predators maintain ecological balance, drive evolutionary innovation, and ensure the survival of the strongest traits in a population. Without predators, prey species often overpopulate and consume all available resources, leading to ecological collapse. Elena felt the conversation shifting in a direction she hadn't expected, but one that felt important. The Devourers aren't predators in any natural sense. They're parasites. They take without giving back, consume without creating, expand without building. That's not predation, that's destruction. But humans, Jack said thoughtfully, humans are true predators. You compete, you dominate when necessary, but you also cooperate and create. Exactly, Elena replied, and that's why we're going to win this fight. The briefing was interrupted by urgent reports from the sensor stations. The Devourer fleet had begun its approach, moving in perfect formation toward the inner system. Elena watched the tactical display as hundreds of ships arranged themselves in geometric patterns that spoke of mathematical precision rather than organic tactical thinking. They're not adapting to our presence, Lieutenant Rodriguez observed. They're following a predetermined attack pattern. Elena felt a spark of hope. Dr. Chen, what did the Zephyrian records say about successful defenses against the Devourers? Chen consulted his notes quickly. The few successful defenses all had one thing in common. The defending forces did something completely unexpected, something outside the Devourers' programmed responses. Like what? The hegemony of Altair survived by pretending to surrender, then self-destructing their entire fleet inside the Devourer formation. The Crystalline Confederacy scattered their forces into individual ships and fought. A guerrilla campaign for decades until the Devourers moved on to easier targets. Elena smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Both of those strategies worked because they were essentially human tactics applied by alien species. The Devourers can't adapt to strategies they've never encountered before. Corvani's skin flashed bright orange with what Elena was beginning to recognize as excitement. You believe human tactical thinking can overcome their advantages? I believe human unpredictability is exactly what we need right now, Elena replied. But we'll need your help. Your technology, combined with our tactics, might just be enough to surprise them. The next 6 hours were spent in frantic preparation. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian technicians to modify ship systems and weapons arrays. Elena found herself constantly amazed by the aliens' technology. Their ships could bend space-time in ways that human science barely understood, while their weapon systems operated on principles that seemed almost magical. The key, Dr. Chen explained to a mixed group of human and Zephyrian officers, is understanding that the Devourers operate like a computer program. They have responses to most conventional tactics, but they can't improvise the way organic beings can. Jax raised one of his forearms. What if we combined human improvisation with Zephyrian phase-shifting technology? We could appear and disappear at will, striking from impossible angles. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Can your ships carry human crews? With proper life support modifications, yes, Corvani replied. But our pilots have never flown with organic beings aboard. The thought patterns required for phase shifting are different. Then we'll adapt, Elena said simply. That's what humans do. The battle began at 0347 ship time. The Devourer fleet approached in perfect formation, their ships gleaming with an artificial perfection that made Elena's skin crawl. She stood on the bridge of a modified Zephyrian vessel, watching as her small fleet prepared to face an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. All ships, this is Commander Vasquez. She spoke into the communication system that linked human and Zephyrian vessels alike. Remember, our advantage is unpredictability. Don't fight fair, don't fight by their rules, and don't give them time to adapt to our tactics. The first wave of Devourer scouts came in fast and aggressive, their weapon systems immediately targeting the largest human vessels. But instead of meeting them head-on, Elena's fleet scattered like a school of fish, using Zephyrian phase shift technology to vanish and reappear in unexpected locations. Now! Elena shouted, and her mixed crews unleashed a coordinated attack that struck the Devourers from 6 different angles simultaneously. The results were immediately apparent. The Devourer formation wavered as their tactical algorithms struggled to process the unusual attack pattern. Several enemy ships collided with each other as they attempted to respond to threats from multiple directions at once. "It's working!" Jax called out excitedly from his position at the navigation console. Their coordination is breaking down. But the Devourers adapted quickly. Within minutes, they had reorganized into smaller, more flexible groups that could respond to multiple threats independently. Elena watched the tactical display and felt her heart sink as the enemy ships began to coordinate their attacks more effectively. Phase 2, she announced. All human vessels, implement Guerrilla Protocol 7. Zephyrian ships, maintain phase shift capability, but target their command nodes. What follow? Weed was unlike any battle in recorded galactic history. Human ships darted in and out of combat like angry hornets, striking hard and fast before disappearing again. Meanwhile, Zephyrian vessels used their superior technology to attack from impossible angles, phasing in and out of normal space to avoid return fire. The Devourers, for all their technological superiority, found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to behave according to their programming. Every time they adapted to one tactic, the human Zephyrian alliance would switch to something completely different. "Commander," Dr. Chen called out from his position at the science station, "I'm detecting something unusual. The Devourer collective consciousness seems to be experiencing errors. Their individual ships are losing coordination with the main fleet." Elena felt a surge of hope. They can't adapt fast enough. Their collective processing power is being overwhelmed by too many variables. The tide of battle began to turn. Devourer ships, cut off from their collective consciousness, began operating independently. Without the unified coordination that was their greatest strength, they became vulnerable to the kind of tactics that humans had perfected over centuries of warfare. "All ships, focus fire on isolated targets," Elena ordered. "Don't give them time to re-establish communication with their collective." The battle raged for another 4 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. One by one, Devourer ships were destroyed or disabled. Those that remained began to retreat toward the edge of the system, their perfect formations replaced by the desperate flight of individual survivors. "Incredible," Corvani said, its skin cycling through colors Elena had never seen before. "In 10,000 years of galactic history, no one has ever defeated the Devourers so decisively." Elena smiled wearily. "That's because no one had ever combined Zephyrian technology with human stubbornness before." The aftermath of the battle brought revelations that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. The Devourers, it turned out, had been operating under programming that was millions of years old. They had never encountered a species that combined advanced technology with evolutionary aggression and adaptability. The irony, Dr. Chen observed as they examined capture-devourer technology, is that the Zephyrians were right to be afraid of predator species, but they were afraid of the wrong ones. Elena nodded, watching as human and Zephyrian crews worked together to repair battle damage and study their defeated enemies. The real predators in this galaxy aren't the ones who destroy everything in their path. They're the ones who adapt, overcome, and build something better from the chaos. Corvani approached her as she stood on the observation deck, looking out at the debris field that marked their victory. "Commander Vasquez, the collective has authorized me to make a formal proposal. We would like to establish a permanent alliance with humanity." "I think Earth Command would be very interested in that conversation," Elena replied. "There is one thing I must ask," Corvani continued, its skin shifting to a curious green. "Are all humans like you, so willing to fight impossible odds and find victory in certain defeat?" Elena laughed, feeling truly relaxed for the first time in days. "Zeph Prime Corvani, you have no idea. What you've seen so far is humans on our best behavior. Wait until you meet our politicians." As the first ships of the Fifth Fleet emerged from hyperspace to find the battle already won, Elena realized that this was just the beginning. Humanity had proven itself to the galaxy not as destroyers, but as protectors, not as parasites, but as partners. The true nature of predators, she reflected, wasn't about consuming everything in sight. It's about adapting to any challenge, overcoming any obstacle, and building something better from the struggle. It was about turning enemies into allies and transforming conflict into cooperation. In the end, that was what made humans truly dangerous to their enemies and truly valuable to their friends. They were predators in the best possible sense of the word, and the galaxy would never be the same because of it.